Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dr. Waqaruddin, a very distinguished panel of speakers, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Let me first of all say thank you to ISNA for organizing this meeting this afternoon. I had prepared some notes to speak on very similar issues which you heard the moving testimonies, and of course Brother Waqaruddin who has given us detail of the genocide that is taking place. I'm afraid I'm the least qualified out of the panel because Honorable Thomas Andrews, who is working not only in Washington, D.C., but around the world, and he's visited the areas with the Rohingya community, and of course my brother Abdul Malik Mujahid not only has been running campaign here in the United States, but internationally I know that he was one of the organizers of the conference in Oslo, and other speakers have similar experience. I can tell you that last week I was in Korea, in Seoul, and there was a conference on peace and development, and a monk from Sri Lanka, who was the chancellor of university where monks are trained, made a very good speech in relation to this peaceful religion of Buddhism. And he said that Buddhism is the most peaceful religion in the world. And of course, a lot of what he said, I think all the religions generally share in terms of values and in terms of their beliefs. And then when he finished and there was opportunity to ask questions, I was the first one to raise my hand, and I said, "Sir, could you please explain to me? I always thought that Buddhism is a very peaceful religion. Everybody in the world thinks Buddhism is the most peaceful. In fact, they don't say that about Islam or Christianity, but they say about Buddhism." And I said that I went to Sri Lanka and I saw BBS, those Buddhist monks burning down houses and buildings and businesses of Muslims. And then you have 969, and Thomas was telling me that they have changed their name now. The Buddhist monks who've been involved with rape, burning down houses and burning down mosques, and of course driving communities out of their houses. How does that compare with what you've just said? And he was very diplomatic. He sort of, first of all said, "You know, you are from England. I studied there. It's a great country," just to calm me down. And then, but he was very clever. Then he turned it around and he said, "You know, Islam is a peaceful religion, and you've got ISIS. And you know, we also have 5% of our 95% is very peaceful." But what I said back was that ISIS is not made of muftis and imams. Yours are Buddhist monks who are doing this. And that's the difference. But I also, and there's no justification for ISIS, by the way, because I did try to explain that ISIS has nothing to do with Islam. These are former socialist Saddam Hussein's Baathists who were driven out because we had sort of dismantled the state, and we dismantled the soldiers and their administration and sent them back. We didn't give them a penny, we didn't give them anything, and they were pushed back, and the new government, which was led from Najaf and Maliki's government, that pushed them so economically, and no justification what they are doing. But that gave them a cause to fight. And the only thing that could unite them was not socialism or Baathism, but it was about Islam. It was Islam that actually united them, at least in my understanding. But today, what you see both in Burma and in Sri Lanka is that these monks that have been doing this. So about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when we first saw those terrible photographs on social media, many of you would have seen those horrible pictures of boys, girls, old men being slaughtered and bodies laid on the floor, houses that are burnt down. And of course, you must have visited the 2 stalls here at the convention center. And those pictures of innocent people that have been burnt down. And of course, British newspapers have said that Rohingya community is the most persecuted community in the world. And I totally agree with Dr. Waqaruddin that this regime is the modern fascists, the Nazis. They're using exactly the same tactics. And if you look, 2.5 years ago, when I actually saw these pictures, immediately we organized a meeting with the ambassador of Burma, Myanmar, and we went to see him with a delegation of politicians, Muslim politicians in the British Parliament, as well as one brother who is from Burma. And we went to see him, and of course he tried to justify. And then he gave us this excuse, and he said, well, most of these people are not from Burma. They are new people they are Bangladeshi citizens who have come after 1971 and who are actually still coming in because they are economic migrants. And then I check up. Then I actually done some research, and Muslims have been in Burma when Minso in 1430 of the kingdom of Maruk, after 24 years of him being deposed, he stayed in Bengal. And then he regained control of the Arkanese throne in 1430, and with military assistance from the Bengal Sultanate. So Muslims came along from Bengal 1430. And so going back hundreds of years of these communities that have been there. But more importantly, British, when we actually took over this piece of land, as we've done in the past, we've taken some people with us who could produce some products so we can make money, but also so keep our soldiers over there. Going back over 100 years, in 1826, there was, that's when the British took over, and then they took farmers, laborers from this part of the world. But really, the problem actually started, as I see it, is since this military regime took over. And because they deprived democracy, they wanted to divert all their problems and blame the Muslims, like the Nazis did, blaming the Jewish communities in Europe. They have done exactly the same, and they are sort of running a similar type of laws and rules. You've heard about the deprivation of their citizenship, deprivation of their rights, the new green card, no right to vote, no right to stand for elections. From 1946 to 1962, Rohingya members of parliament, but in fact, they were members in the government too as ministers. Today, even the great democratic leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, the one that we celebrate around the world, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, she does not mention Rohingya community. That's a shame. That's a shame, and we should say it as well. So whilst the regime talks about the whole thing started from the gold shop, the arguments there, then they talk about this rape, allegedly, and then actually, like Brother Waqar said, and all the speakers will tell you, this was designed, this was done deliberately, and deprivation of their citizenship, their rights. And actually, I have no idea what their plans are, really, because the problem with this situation is that sadly, nobody wants the Rohingya communities anywhere. And that's why you saw over 2,700 people perished in the sea and nobody wanted them and been thrown into the sea, in deep seawater. So I think there are other speakers, and I really didn't want to take time, but I think that there are a number of things that we can demand from our parliamentarians. Yes, I congratulate the Congress for the fantastic resolution, and I hope that the Senate will also pass something. We have an all-party parliamentary group, which Baroness Kinnock, who's a great woman, wife of former leader of the Labour Party, Neil Kinnock, and she was a minister in Labour government as well. She's a strong advocate and also chairman of the all-party parliamentary group, which supports the Rohingya community. We don't have a similar system, but at least this APPG is doing quite a lot of work. But I think together we should be demanding that this regime ends its policies and practices of genocide and restores full and equal citizenship rights to Rohingya communities. We should demand that they institute the right of return of all the displaced people. And we should also demand and that they provide protection for the vulnerable and for all the communities, including Rohingya community. And then that they should actively promote reconciliation between communities, because they're the ones who've actually created this hatred between Muslims and non-Muslims. But can I say, we can demand these things unless we demand that the international community should put sanctions on this regime. It's not going to happen. So let's demand that there should be sanctions put on this Burmese government until they give rights and protection to the innocent and poor people of Burma, the Rohingya communities. So I've just come to show my solidarity with yourselves, and anything that we can do, inshallah, we will be supporting you from London and from Europe. Thank you very much.